What's happening, everybody? Happy Saturday. Week 12 start-sit help. Taking your questions, sorting out what you need ahead of Week 12. With just a couple of weeks to go before the fantasy playoffs, now's the time to get those lineups set. As always, we'll go over the latest injury updates that we have. They may or may not influence your decision, but the more you know, the better, right? Knowledge is power. And then, of course, taking any specific questions that anybody may have. Let's see. We'll get right into the injuries, and then we'll get after it. Colts quarterback Daniel Jones was added to the injury report late in the week, but is now off the injury report and will play Week 12. No concerns there. I think it was a calf injury, so to speak. Now I'm seeing fibula. All the same, Daniel Jones appears to be good to go. No problems for him. David Njoku is off the injury report for Week 12. He didn't practice much, but he will play. That's a gross situation between him and Harold Fannin, catching the ball from Shedeur Sanders for the first time, who is making his first career start. Ramondre Stevenson, Kayshon Boutte will return to the Patriots. They both, I think, had 2 or 3 week absences. Definitely 3 games for Ramondre. I think 2 games for Boutte. They will come back. It'll be interesting to see what the Patriots' backfield looks like after the emergence of TreVeyon Henderson over the past couple of weeks and whether or not they will fully commit to going back to Ramondre. We shall see. And then same with Boutte. How much does he impact Mack Hollins, Kyle Williams? I mean, Kyle Williams goes back to being just a dynasty stash and nothing more. Maybe deep league keeper stash, but he's probably going to lose all of his opportunities, if not most of them, to Boutte. And Mack Hollins has been playing at a high level as a veteran, so he's probably not, he's not coming off the field necessarily. Let's see. Aaron Rodgers, questionable for Week 12. He's in a good matchup in single quarterback leagues, but with the wrist injury, hopefully you can have better options. Isaiah Pacheco ruled out for Week 12. Kareem Hunt will lead the backfield for Kansas City once again against Indianapolis. He is a perfectly fine guy to fire up as a flex option. Maybe on the lower end RB2, mid to low end RB2. Alvin Kamara is questionable. We'll keep an eye on that against Atlanta. At least it's a good matchup. Darius Slayton is off the injury report, but Jackson Dart will not play. Much has been made about how the Giants have handled the Jackson Dart concussions. Could be plural at this point. It's at least 1, maybe 2. Was practicing in a limited fashion all week. Now not playing in this game. We'll see what else, if any, fallout comes from the Jackson Dart injury situation. But it'll be Jameis for another week in a matchup where the Giants are double-digit underdogs on the road to the Detroit Lions. So Wan'Dale Robinson, especially in PPR, quite viable. Darius Slayton in deeper leagues, teams with injuries, bye weeks, etc. Certainly viable. Jameis will have to chuck it on the road against Detroit, where they are expected to be, they're basically expected to lose the game by double digits. So they're going to throw. Xavier Worthy's questionable. Josh Jacobs is questionable. Obviously one to monitor. I believe they play in the 1 o'clock window, the Packers. So at least we'll know early Josh Jacobs' status. Yeah, it's a 1 o'clock start. So we will know Josh Jacobs' status with all available options to us if we need to pivot off of him. If he plays, you play Josh Jacobs. He's just one of those guys that has to be in your lineup if he is active. That's just the way it is. Emmanuel Wilson goes back to being a guy that you cannot trust outside of the deepest leagues. If Jacobs is out and you picked up Emmanuel Wilson, or maybe you already had him because you had him handcuffed, you had Jacobs handcuffed, you can absolutely fire him up. If you have Jacobs and you don't have Emmanuel Wilson and Jacobs is out, we can talk shop. Let me know what your alternate options are and we can figure it out. their receivers are quite banged up. Matthew Golden is questionable. Dontavian Wicks is questionable. I believe Jaden Reed had his practice window opened, but he is not going to play. He is out this week. So it'll be Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs leading the way once again for the Packers receivers. Kenneth Walker is questionable for Week 12, but I think he's good to go. I don't think that injury designation is anything to worry about. Walker got increased usage and looked pretty good with it last week. We'll see if that continues in a plus matchup against Tennessee. Torrey Horton is out. So, Torrey Horton has been placed on injured reserve. So for the foreseeable future, it is, obviously JSN being best receiver in the league this year, and then Rashid Shaheed figures to continue to get and develop into a prominent role with his new team. Develop probably wasn't the right word there. He's not a rookie, but he is with a new team, so it's going to take some time to get acclimated. Chimere DK is off the injury report for Week 12. He could be a decent desperation option. That wide receiver, Alec Imanor, is not going to play. He is ruled out. Jaylen Warren is off the injury report for Week 12 and will go. He exited last week's game against Cincinnati. The reports that were coming out after the game was that Warren could have gone back into the game if absolutely necessary, but they held him out, I guess, with long-term aspects kept in mind and quote-unquote being smart, I think was exactly what Warren said last week, just being smart, being responsible, managing things. He's good to go. No injury designation for Jaylen Warren. You can fire him up with plenty of confidence. If you happen to pick up Kenny Gainwell, I would leave him on the bench this week. He could be enticing against the Bears, but his numbers when Jaylen Warren starts and finishes a game are week to week not that great. So I would pivot off of Kenny Gainwell. Hopefully you weren't planning on using him this week. Trey Benson is out for another week. It'll be Bam Knight and Michael Carter. Amari DiMercado has a high ankle sprain. Brian Thomas is out for Week 12. His incredibly disappointing season continues. Bajel Tutin, though, is off the injury report and will play in Week 12. He's a very interesting, intriguing name. Maybe not just this week, possibly the rest of the season. Could see increased usage in that backfield. Appears to be carving out a little bit more of a role. Favorable matchup on the road against Arizona. Again, Brian Thomas is out, so they're going to need production in other ways. Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington can only do so much. I believe Brenton Strange is back, but, they should funnel as much work as to the running backs as they possibly can. ETN and Tutin. So Tutin, a very interesting name tomorrow. And Brenton Strange is questionable, or at least that's the last I saw. Justice Hill is off the injury report for Week 12. He may get some run if the Ravens blow out the Jets, but he's more of a situational passing down player and in a favorable match for Baltimore against the Jets tomorrow. He's not the best option on the radar. Chris Godwin, questionable, not fantasy relevant at this time. Joe Burrow, pushed to play, tried to play for Cincinnati, would have returned a month ahead of schedule. It will not come to pass, probably for the best. The last thing you want is a re-aggravation of an injury. He will not be activated. He will not play. It will be Joe Flacco tomorrow for Cincinnati against the New England Patriots. You can play Chase Brown. You can play T. Higgins. You can take a shot in deeper leagues, 3-receiver leagues that you can take a shot on Andre Yosivas. Flacco, I'm not starting, not without Jamar Chase, and it's a tough matchup against the Patriots. But Chase Brown, Higgins, and in deep leagues, Yosivas is a flex flyer. Oh, Chris Godwin expected to play. Still not on the fantasy radar yet. Worth a stash in deeper leagues, but not starting anywhere. I think those are all the injury updates that I have. Yep, I think those are all the major updates. Those are all the major reports. Okay. We'll get into it. Can now take your questions. I don't see any members in here just yet. That's okay, but if they do come in, they will get first priority to Full first priority responses to their questions, no matter when they come in. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. I don't see any yet, but it's still early. We have time. Oh, expect a heavy dose of Sean Tucker in Week 12. That's another update. That was from Diana Rossini. Not a total surprise. Sean Tucker looked really good last week against the Bills. Rachaad White looked okay, but Rachaad White has only ever been, at his best, he was a solid pass catching back. He has never been a good runner of the football, Rachaad White. So it's possible Sean Tucker is headed toward an expanded role tomorrow. Bucky Irving will not play. It sounds like the Bucs are optimistic that Bucky Irving will come back in Week 13. It sounds like, based on the latest, that Bucky was going through some stuff in this process to get healthy, to get right, maybe more than just, physically getting healthy. So obviously all the best to Bucky Irving. Hopefully everything is okay and, comes out on the other side, ready to go and feeling good physically, mentally, whatever it takes. Hopefully all is well with him. But hopefully also he comes back next week. Hopefully he comes back and he's ready to go and he's back to being Bucky. But Sean Tucker in the interim sounds like he's headed for an expanded role. So feel free to, bye weeks, injuries, whatever have you. If you happen to grab Sean Tucker, he's absolutely on the radar tomorrow. I would absolutely play him over Rachaad White if you have both of them. Ideally, you do not have to play Rachaad, but I guess he could be viable in PPR leagues if the Bucs are trailing, if they decide to get him out there for passing down work. But Tucker has a higher floor than usual. Okay, I think we're good to go. Now that I got through the Bucky part, let's get into it. You have three quarterbacks to choose from. Caleb against Pittsburgh, Bryce in a great matchup. Actually, all three of these guys have good matchups. Caleb in a favorable matchup against the Steelers. Bryce Young in a great matchup against San Francisco by the numbers, and he's coming off of a very strong game. And then Darnold in a good matchup against the Tennessee Titans. My concern with Darnold is that he just doesn't have to do very much in this game for Seattle to handle their business. They're double-digit favorites on the road against Tennessee. They should take care of business with relative ease. All due respect to the Titans, they are not. They look overwhelmed. The rookie quarterback looks overmatched at times. They just don't look like they are. They're preparing and attempting to compete starting in 2026. It's a slow burn right now with Tennessee. If Seattle gets up big on Tennessee, then Darnold may not have to do that much. There's a little bit more risk for him. It's not the matchup, it's the situation. I trust Darnold to do fine. I just worry about his volume in a game where the Seahawks could be running the ball in the second half with a decent lead. I think I'll go Caleb. It's a good matchup against Pittsburgh. He's at home. It should be a competitive game. He has looked at times like an elite fantasy quarterback. He's definitely looked at times like he still has a long way to go. But Caleb, I think, has produced a slightly more consistent ceiling than Bryce Young. I know he popped last week against Atlanta, and he's got another good matchup this week against San Francisco. But Bryce has not been great on the road in his career. Let's see if he can be great on the road twice in a row before we go back to him. I'll take Caleb. over Bryce and Darnold. Montgomery, Wan'Dale, Sean Tucker, and then Dak or Purdy. So Montgomery is in a much better matchup than the one he was in last week against the Giants. Tucker is in a good match, is in a situation where he's going to see increased usage in all likelihood against the Rams, and then Wan'Dale against the Lions. If it was full PPR, I would more definitively be telling you to go Wan'Dale. I think I'm still okay with advocating for Wan'Dale. Although I will say it is this is the type of matchup where it's like you almost expect David Montgomery to get work with the Lions, churning out yards, killing clock because they have a lead against an inferior opponent. And therefore it feels like it could be a David Montgomery game. I'll say Montgomery for your floor. The floor play is Montgomery. He's got a high floor. He may not have a super high ceiling, but Montgomery should be safe in a great matchup against the Giants. The Lions should have the lead. They should be running the ball. I'll take Montgomery at home. If it was full PPR, I would say Wan'Dale. Because it's half PPR, I'll say Montgomery. As far as Dak versus Purdy, Dak gets the Eagles. And yes, the Cowboys offense has been cooking, but it is a tough matchup against the Eagles. Purdy, first game back last week, he did quite well. Now he gets a very favorable matchup at home against Carolina. The matchup is just better. Dak might have the better situation with the wide receivers he gets to throw to, but that's a tougher matchup against the Eagles tomorrow against the Philly defense. The Philly defense has been rocking it recently. I think I'll say Purdy over Dak slightly. It's close, but the fact that Dak has to play the Eagles and Purdy gets the Panthers, that's what tips the scales for me. If it was a more neutral matchup, I would say Dak with those wide receivers, but I'll say Purdy against Carolina. What's going on, Nino? Good to see you. First member of the day. Welcome in. I said it just as I started started answering questions, but I will reiterate it now that Nino is in here. When members pop in, their questions get first priority. That is a perk of being a member of the channel. You can find more details about becoming a member if you're interested in the first link in the description of this live stream and all videos and streams on the channel. So I do see your questions. I do ask Joe, though, for some patience as I work through member questions first. You're thinking about selling Amon-Ra. I mean, the other thing here on top of the injury is that the Lions offense has not been as consistent this year as they were last year. They've had their big games, and I'll be honest, I think they're going to have a big game tomorrow. I think they're going to drop a lot of they only scored 9 points last week against the Eagles. I think they're going to take some frustrations out on the Giants tomorrow. I don't think that game is going to be close. Just like with the they got to go back to Jameis. They don't have Dart. I feel like, and the Lions are, they're not just a playoff hopeful. They are a title contender hopeful. I feel like they're going to handle their business tomorrow. But to turn Amon-Ra and all of those running backs into JSN and Javonte, I mean, JSN has been the best receiver in football this year, and Javonte has been a pretty steady wide receiver one. Running back one, excuse me. Judkins and Brees have been solid. Amon-Ra has been quite good. Look, as you know, or maybe, I'm sure you've heard me at some point or other say, like, at the end of the day, go with your gut. And if you're worried, if a situation has you worried and you have an opportunity to move off of it while not losing value, in fact, gaining value in JSN, I think I'm okay with it. I think I also would rather have, I guess I would, if I had to rank these running backs that I would most want the rest of the season, I would rank Javonte 1, and then Brees and Judkins would be 2 and 3 because at least Javante's on a great offense. Brees and Judkins are on bad offenses. They're good players on bad offenses. So I'll take the good player in the better situation. And you go from Amon-Ra to JSN, who is having a overall wide receiver 1 type of season. Yeah, I would do that trade. Now that I've talked it through, I would do that trade. If you have that available to you to send Amon-Ra and Brees and Judkins to acquire JSN and Javonte, I'm with it. I'm on board with that. Yeah. Amon-Ra's not too far from JSN, but he is below JSN. So, yeah, you'd be upgrading. And then Javonte I'd rather have than Brees and Judkins. Yup. Yeah. So, yeah, he does have the wrist injury that's going on. Still a great player, is going to continue to probably put up wide receiver 1 numbers more often than not, but JSN has been having the overall wide receiver 1 season. Like, it is worth it to sell a stud for a guy like JSN this year because he's been the stud of studs. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. And then Walker is good to go. So you have some good options, to be honest. They're all good. They're all good plays between Walker, ETN, JMO, Pierce. They're all really good options. I would probably take the floor of Kenneth Walker just because of the matchup against Tennessee. I think JMO's going to have a great game tomorrow. I do. Again, it's a great matchup against the Giants. I think the Lions, this is going to be a game where they get 35, maybe 40 points. Like I think they're going to take some frustrations out on the Giants. They were stymied last week. The Lions offense was. I think at home they're going to try to right the ship. I feel like JMO's going to have a big game. So he's maybe a ceiling play, but I would probably just take the floor of Walker. He's in a good matchup. He's in a good matchup against Tennessee. Looked better last week. I think I would go Walker. Unless you feel like you need to swing for the fences and get some upside, then JMO. Okay. I will keep an eye out on any more member questions. But until then, let me jump back up to the top. Why is it not letting me select? It's not letting me select these questions. I can't show them. Oh, there we go. Why did that take so long? All right. At least as long as everything's working. Tootin, Gainwell, or Charbonnet? I'm going Tootin here. Charbonnet has a good matchup, but Walker looked better last week. He looked better last week. And then the coaching staff came out and said they want to give him more opportunities. So I'm going to ride for at least 1 week. I'm going to ride the Walker wave, and that means that I need to bump Charbonnet down. So not Charbonnet, and honestly not Gainwell. Gainwell looked enticing coming into this week, but Jaylen Warren doesn't have an injury designation. And when Jaylen Warren starts and finishes a game, more often than not, Kenny Gainwell doesn't put up big numbers. He contributes for the Steelers to help the Steelers offense, but he does not have the fantasy numbers when Jaylen Warren starts and finishes a game. So I'm going to go Tootin, who appears to be carving out a role in a bigger way than I think Gainwell is. The reason Gainwell has gotten more opportunities was when Warren was out of the lineup. And he missed a good chunk of the game last week against Cincinnati, so that's why Gainwell got more opportunities. With Warren not having an injury designation, I'm putting Tootin over somebody like Gainwell. Give me Bijal Tootin in a good matchup against Arizona. By the way, Tootin is off the injury report, so he's good to go, and I think he's got a higher floor than either one of Gainwell or Charbonnet. Tet, Swift, Egbuka. And if you go Swift, then you need to decide between Emeka and Tet. Man, I kind of think I want to play those wide receivers. I think I want to. It's really close. It's really close. But Tet popped off last week. We saw the ceiling. We saw what he's capable of. How can you not make that the focal point of what you want to plan to do on offense most weeks if you're the Carolina Panthers? And Bryce played well last week. They've got another favorable matchup this week against San Francisco. I don't know if I trust Bryce to fire him up in one quarterback leagues, but I do trust Tet in a matchup that looks good on paper coming off of a massive performance. And then Egbuka, I mean, I know he's been kind of quiet recently, but he's still a wide receiver 1 on the season. Had a bit of a tough time last week with the wind. No such issues Sunday night in LA against the Rams in a game where the Bucs are touchdown underdogs, so they're going to be throwing no matter what against a great Rams offense. I kind of like your wide receivers. I think I would go with Egbuka and Tet. Swift is a good option tomorrow. He's a solid option tomorrow. No problem with his matchup. I think I just slightly prefer those wide receivers. Slightly prefer those wide receivers. Yeah. Give me Tet Egbuka. Drake or Lamar. I'm going Drake May. I'm going Drake May. And for the longest time, Lamar was a guy who you just kind of plug in, set and forget. But Drake May has become that guy. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks in football right now. Favorable matchup, good matchup against Cincinnati. On the road, so should stay aggressive throughout the game. I like Drake May, like pretty much outside of, I know I said on Thursday night, I start Josh Allen. I still start Josh Allen over everybody. I know he had a bad game. It was against the Houston Texans on a short week. Not a great situation, but Allen is an alien. I accept the result and move on. Allen is still my QB1 next week. After that, it's Drake May. He's been that good. I'm playing May. And then Caleb or Brissett, I could honestly go either way on this. They're both in good matchups. They both have been, their ceilings have been solid. Brissett, I guess, has been a top 10 quarterback 4 out of the past 5 weeks. So I guess I'll give him the slight nod against Jacksonville. Really good matchup on paper. Even without Marvin Harrison, he should be fine. I'll give the slight nod to Jacoby, but I am perfectly fine playing either. Favorite long shot touchdown for tomorrow, Nino? Let me think on that one. I see it. I see the question. Let me think on that one. Like we're looking just long odds. Like give me it like a dart throw, like a guy that's kind of not a like I like Jameson Williams as a touch. I like Jameson Williams to get a touchdown tomorrow. You're looking for longer odds than that. If you're looking for longer odds than that, let me know. Better start for the flex, Pearsall or Tootin in full PPR? That's a good question. Again, I like Tootin's opportunity here. I do think he's got an expanded role coming, and I know Pearsall didn't do anything last week. I think because it's full PPR, I slightly lean Pearsall for a higher floor. He got a game under his belt after missing a lot of time. It's his second game back, so you feel like you have a little bit more confidence in starting a guy. Second game back versus first game back at home, favorable matchup. He's got his quarterback right. It's Purdy's back. He's healthy. It's not Mac Jones. It's not like it's not been like a musical chairs offense like their offense has kind of been this year with the quarterbacks and the injuries to the wide receivers and George Kittle. Kittle missed time as well. Like we've got the 49ers offense about as healthy as it's been all year. Let's ride that wave at home Monday night against Carolina. I'll take Pearsall for the floor in full PPR. Half PPR or standard scoring, I would probably say Tootin, but because it's full PPR, I think I'll go Pearsall. I think I'll go Pearsall. Gut feeling type, but yeah, JMO, Burden. Okay, so even longer than that. I don't mind. I'll say it real quick. I don't mind that shout out from right below the Keaton Mitchell one. I mean, running backs, like backup running backs on teams that are double-digit favorites are solid bets because they're churning out clock. They've got the lead. They're just killing clock in the second half to get out of there, get the win, and get everybody out of there healthy. You know, the second and third string running backs are commonly getting opportunities in those scenarios. So, yeah, like Keaton Mitchell, I guess Zach Charbonnet probably doesn't have super long odds, but, you know, the Seahawks are big favorites on the road against the Titans, so Charbonnet could fall into the end zone. I don't love his role. Right now, it feels like Walker's role is expanding, but if the Seahawks have a big lead, Charbonnet will get in there. Yeah, like those types of names, those types of situations. I'll try to think on some others. I'll keep the question in mind. The thought might come to me as I'm answering these questions. Yeah, that's not a bad one. Because I wouldn't say Justice Hill. Because Justice Hill for the Ravens operates in the 2-minute drill, right? Keaton Mitchell could be getting carries in the second half if the Ravens are killing the Jets. That's a good call. I said Pearsall slightly over Tootin in full PPR, but I would probably play Tootin in standard or half PPR scoring, just for whatever that's worth. Tootin, Trey Tucker, or Corum. Yeah, so scoring probably matters a little bit here. If it's half PPR or standard, I would probably go Tootin. I don't want to play Corum. He feels dicey in what should be a competitive game between the Rams and the Bucs. I think it's going to be a Kyren Williams game for LA tomorrow. So I'll say if it's standard scoring or half PPR, I'll say Tootin. And if it's full PPR, I'll take the shot on Trey Tucker, but it is a tougher matchup for the Raiders against the Browns, for what it's worth. So honestly, maybe just go Tootin in all formats, but there is an argument for Trey Tucker in full PPR. Will Godwin negatively affect Otton tomorrow? I'm going to say no for at least 1 week because Godwin has missed so much time. It wouldn't surprise me to see him in basically a part-time role tomorrow. Maybe he's fully healthy, maybe he's ready to go, but if Godwin plays a full complement of snaps tomorrow, that I feel like that would be a slight surprise. I don't know how much in a vacuum, regardless of Chris Godwin, that I trust Cade Otton. I would probably rather play A.J. Barner, Jawan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Theo Johnson. Otton's Otton's a good football player. He's not a consistent guy for fantasy, even when there are injuries in the lineup. We've seen that so far play out this year. He's only been marginally better. So I'm not dying to play Otton. There are some other names that I think that I slightly prefer, regardless of Chris Godwin's status tomorrow. Ramondre Tootin, Brian Robinson, Monangai. I want to continue to get hyped and excited for Travion Henderson. This is the first game for Ramondre since Henderson blew up. Prior to that, the Patriots had been going back to Ramondre over and over again. So I'm inclined to believe that he's still going to be involved. Because they're playing Cincinnati, I'll play Ramondre. That's how bad the Bengals are. I would play 2 running backs on the same team against the Bengals. They are so bad on defense, and they still don't have Trey Hendrickson. I'll play Ramondre just because they're playing Cincinnati, and then we'll see what that backfield breakdown looks like tomorrow. Yeah. I'll take Ramondre. Start one wide receiver and 1 flex. And yes, happy Saturday. Addison, Pierce, Watson, Pearsall, or you could play Emmanuel Wilson. So if Jacobs is out, you'll play Emmanuel Wilson. Like, that's just, be ready. If you have Emmanuel Wilson and Josh Jacobs doesn't play, he's questionable right now. We don't know if he's going to go or not. They're probably going to put him through a pregame workout, see how he feels, and make a call from there. We will find out around 11:30 Eastern tomorrow if Jacobs is in or not. If he's out, play Wilson. If he's in, then you're just picking the wide receivers. I would say Alec Pierce is probably one of them because it's a matchup. There could be, it could be a bit of a shootout against Kansas City. Indianapolis has a great offense, so there are fewer concerns. Kansas City's got a good defense, but Indy's offense has been awesome, so you feel okay about Indy even in a tougher spot because they're coming off their bye week. So I'll take Alec Pierce, and Pierce has been steadily getting better. So I'm okay with Pierce tomorrow. And then I'll probably take Watson for some upside. Tougher matchup against the Vikings, but the Packers wide receivers are banged up. Golden and Wicks are both on the injury report. Dobbs isn't, but he did get banged up last week, so, anybody's guess how he's doing. He's going to play, but Watson could be their most healthy wide receiver, and he made some big plays last week. So I would plan to go Pierce and Watson if Jacobs is in, and Pierce and Wilson if Jacobs is out. I can't play Addison. J.J. McCarthy looks terrible right now. And while I like Pearsall to bounce back a little bit this week compared to last week, you have other options that I slightly prefer. Iosivas, Mooney, or Coker. Just ranking these guys. Is this tomorrow? Or it has to be tomorrow because once Jamar Chase comes back, Iosivas goes back to being irrelevant. Not Coker. He's too Coker. We have to see more from him consistently and regularly before we do anything about that. It would be between Iosivas and Mooney tomorrow. I have a hard time trusting. The Falcons' offense right now. It's not a bad matchup against the Saints, but I don't trust Kirk Cousins. I don't know that Mooney necessarily does well in a primetime role where the defense can kind of focus on him without Drake London. And again, I just don't know that I trust Kirk Cousins. I guess I don't know if I trust Joe Flacco either, but at least he's at home, right? At least it's a home game for Cincinnati. I'll take Iosivas just because he's at home. It's really close. It's close. I'll take Iosivas because they're both depth pieces, ancillary pieces. I'll take the player playing at home versus the one playing on the road. Jaylen Warren or Michael Wilson. Two really good options. It's two really good options. Probably Warren. Full PPR if you want to do Michael Wilson, that's fine. Yeah, that'll be my answer. Jaylen Warren should do perfectly fine tomorrow against the Bears. Standard scoring and half PPR, I would definitely play him. I really want to play both of them, to be honest. I think they're both going to be solid tomorrow, but if you can only play one, then it's based on your scoring for me. Standard scoring or half PPR, I will say Warren. Full PPR, I'll say Michael Wilson. Depends on your scoring. Nino popping in with one more thing. Is it cool to drop Tez for Burden? Yeah, I think so. Because Godwin's back. And I get the thought process, but Godwin's back. Sterling Shepard is in the mix. Cade Otton is in the mix. I think Burden feels like he has a better chance to ascend at the expense of DJ Moore. It just feels like there's fewer mouths to feed in the receiver department for Chicago than Tampa. Tez has to contend with a now healthy Godwin, Igbuka, Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton. For Burden, it's pretty much Rome Odunze and then Colston Loveland has looked good, but he's not established yet. DJ Moore has fallen off. Olamide Zaccheaus is a solid depth contributor, and Cole Kmet is what he is. I feel like Burden is a better. I do think Burden is a better roll of the dice than Tez Johnson. It's close, but I'll slightly take Burden. I'll slightly take Burden. You have Gibbs in your lineup. I would still play Montgomery. Oh, it's full. Yeah, okay. I would still play Montgomery. I think the Lions are going to feast tomorrow against the Giants. I really do. Oh, and that's a full PPR question. My answer is the same. Wilson if Jacobs is out. Pierce no matter what. Wilson if Jacobs is out. Watson if Jacobs is in. Yeah. Let's see. Dynasty question. Would I move Laporta and Wilson for Tet and a second? Sure. Who is your other tight ends? Like, who are your other tight ends? That's what I would be most curious in, because if you're giving up Laporta, who is stepping up for you? And obviously, somebody needs to step up for the rest of the year because Laporta appears to be out for the rest of the season. But are you kind of hanging on? Like, do you have other good wide receivers? Obviously you may not be able to rely on Garrett Wilson the rest of the year. You may not be able to rely on either one of those guys the rest of the year. Are you a contender? Are you middle of the pack? Are you in a rebuild situation? Like, in a vacuum, Tet for a second for those two sounds pretty good. But Laporta is a dynasty tight end one, even with the injury. So I don't know that I want to necessarily just give up on him. But if you're competing, you're going for a championship, you need a guy that can help you win this year. Obviously, Tet, and then, of course, Tet has short and long-term appeal. He's good now. He should be good for a while. That might change things. But if you're not a slam dunk contender this year, you want to be cautious giving up that much talent that will be still valuable to you, years down the road. So I think it depends on your situation. Yeah, like if you have good tight ends, if you have another good tight end, like that's a good younger tight end, then sure, move Laporta and Wilson for Tet in a second. But if you don't have a succession plan ready to go at tight end, or if you're not like a clear-cut top 3 slam dunk contender, then I maybe have some pause on that deal. Who would I start this week? Love against Minnesota, Lawrence against Arizona, Winston against Detroit, or Shuck against the Falcons? I have a hard time trusting the Packers right now. Their offense has not been great. Lawrence, he's tough to trust too, but it's a favorable matchup. Winston, that's a tough spot against a good Detroit defense on the road. And then Shuck, I mean, we just haven't seen that much we haven't seen that much of Shuck yet. To confidently go to him. I assume Bryce Young is not available. If he is, that would probably be my play. If he's not, I think my default here is Lawrence. I worry about the Packers offense. I have a hard time trusting Jordan Love right now. No Tucker Kraft. His receivers are banged up. Their offense has, and Jacobs is questionable. Winston, tough spot against the Lions on the road. That's a tough spot. And then Shuck, I mean, he's in a good matchup against Atlanta. And he's coming off his bye week. We haven't seen all that much from him yet. I think my default answer is Lawrence, who I know is not that great in his own right, but I guess I like his situation the most of these names. Yeah. Lawrence. Drop Gainwell if you're rolling with Tootin to pick up Chris Rodriguez. I don't know that I'm dying to do that. Because Rodriguez is on bye this week, so you don't even get to have a look at him. Gainwell's in the better situation, but I guess Rodriguez is more likely to be the starter rest of the way. If your running back depth is okay, and I assume you don't have Jaylen Warren. If you have Jaylen Warren, keep Kenny Gainwell for sure. Keep those insurance policies, but if you don't have Jaylen Warren and you want to try to swing for upside and get a starter and take your shot on a guy who could be a starter, I guess I'm okay with taking a shot on Rodriguez. Only if you don't have Jaylen Warren. If you have Jaylen Warren, keep Gainwell. But if you don't and you want to take a shot on Rodriguez, I guess that's fine. And I saw that there's no Bryce Young available. Yeah, I'll play Lawrence against Arizona. That's not a bad spot. They're 3-7. They're not great. Lawrence should be able to put up decent numbers against them. Maybe he'll run a little bit. Do you play Devontae or Jaylen Warren in the flex? That's tough. Devontae is in a great matchup against Dallas, at least their secondary. The Cowboys' defense did get better with the trade of Quinnen Williams and the return of DeMarvion Overshown. But their secondary is definitely still beatable, definitely still leaky. I think because it's full PPR, I will say Devontae Smith. But I want to try to find ways to get Jaylen Warren into my lineup. But if it's full PPR, I lean the receiver. The numbers say it's a good matchup against Dallas. I'll say, I know the Eagles' offense has been struggling recently, but I'll say Devontae Smith. I'll take Devontae. Talked about the long shot touchdown. That was a fun conversation. Worthy or Burden tomorrow? Or I assume we're talking about tomorrow, not like rest of season. Worthy's on the injury report. Right? Is he still on the injury report? Is Worthy still on the injury report? I'm just double checking. And he has been pretty quiet recently. It's not a bad matchup by the numbers, but man, he just hasn't been that good this year. I mean, I know Burden's he's a rookie, and he hasn't really done all that much this year. He played 44% of the snaps last week. At least Worthy is a more full-time player. I guess Worthy, but I don't have a ton of confidence in that. Worthy over Burden. Would I drop Pollard for Rodriguez? Sure. That's fine. Pollard, anybody on the Titans has basically no value. No fantasy value. Pollard started off the season okay. He's cleared 50 yards rushing once since week 6. He's lost work to Tajay Spears. I mean, his past 5 games, he's been the RB 32, 22, 32, 27, 44. He's been a low-end RB2 once in the past month and a half. Yeah, you can drop Pollard for Rodriguez and wait on Rodriguez next week. As for Fannin versus Strange, and Strange will play tomorrow. I don't really want to drop Fannin, but I don't mind that move if you want to make it. I think Strange is in a slightly better situation right now than Fannin is with Shedeur. So sure, that's fine. Someone dropped Bo Nix. I mean, Bo Nix is another guy that is, you're grabbing quarterbacks in a situation where you need to because other guys are grabbing lots of quarterbacks. I get it. It's just like Bo Nix, I have no confidence in him right now either. And they're on bye this week. They're not playing. But, just in general, he has not recently. He has not looked good. I would almost rather keep a second defense, although I know that Dart is out and has his bye week still to come, so you need to be prepared. So I guess that's okay. But I would drop whenever Dart comes back healthy. I would insta drop Nix. He's not a hold for me. Trade JSN and Achane for CD, Rice, and Jacobs. I mean, you'd be giving up a top 2 receiver for 2 top 5 receivers. And you'd be giving up an RB1 for another RB1. I guess so. I mean, I don't really want to trade JSN, but CD and Rice are 2 top 5 wide receivers. Achane is a guy that I'd rather have than Jacobs, but he does still project to be an RB1 rest of season. So you're trading a top 2 wide receiver for 2 top 5 wide receivers. I guess that's pretty good value. And then you're trading probably a top 5 running back for, say, a top 8 running back. You're giving up the best. All I'll say is, it's fine if you want to do this. I'm okay with it because you're getting a lot of value. You're not really losing any value at all. You could argue you're gaining some value. I will just contend you're giving up the 2 best pieces in the trade. You're giving up the best wide receiver and the preferred running back in the deal. But you're getting really, really good value, so I can't blame you for doing it. You have Genty and Judkins. Yeah, I guess you don't need Pollard. You could pick up Rodriguez. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Rodgers or Tyrod? I mean, not Tyrod. I would play Rodgers if he plays. Tyrod is probably a bottom 6 or 7 option at quarterback this week. Um, yeah, I'll play. I'll play Rodgers. I know he's hurt, but Rodgers at least has a pedigree. He's playing a team that he loves to beat historically in the Chicago Bears. It might be his last ever game against the Bears. I'm sure he wants to go out with a bang. I'll take Rodgers over Tyrod. I don't trust Tyrod. I just don't. Would I say it's a necessity for someone who has CMC to pick up Brian Robinson? Yes, people who have McCaffrey are the only ones that I would legitimately want to have Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson has been relegated to a nothing burger for fantasy purposes, but if I had McCaffrey, I would be protecting myself with Brian Robinson. I would be protecting that investment, get the insurance policy. Obviously, do your best not to drop valuable pieces, but if you've got a QB2, if you've got a rock solid QB1, then you don't need a QB2. If you've got a rock solid tight end, you don't need a tight end 2. If your running back depth is loaded, then the last guy on your bench is worth dropping to invest in protecting your RB1. Yeah, I would say it's about as close to a necessity as it gets. I would say. This is trade conversation. You're trying to turn Mason Taylor, Wilson, and a wide receiver into Kittle or Andrews. I mean, if you just could you try to trade AJ Brown just on his name, and then that way you could keep Emmanuel Wilson? Could you do Taylor and AJB for Kittle? I'd rather have Kittle than Andrews. Andrews has been doing it on like minimal targets. Kittle, I think, is still the more complete tight end. So I'd rather have Kittle. I would be interested if you could turn A.J. Brown and Mason Taylor into Kittle without having to give up the running back as well in Emmanuel Wilson and try to sell A.J. on his name recognition. If you can, I would be into that. And you should definitely not have to give 3 pieces for Mark Andrews. I know he has been on a strong stretch these past few games, but he's been coming through on some crazy efficiency, and I don't know that I necessarily want to buy that, like buy high right now on Mark Andrews. If I have him, then I'm not doing anything other than plugging him into my lineup and hoping that this stretch continues. But 5 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets in his past 4 games. That's not a lot. And he's only playing 60% of the snaps. Andrews is. Kittle is playing 81, 90, 86, 90, 87% of the snaps. Okay, you may have to give up the running back to make it happen. If you could turn Taylor, Wilson, and A.J. Brown into Kittle and something else, maybe like a random running back at the end of their bench or a random wide receiver at the end of their bench, it could be the last guy on their bench just to make it a little bit more of like an even swap, 3 for 2 instead of 3 for 1. Then I would do that deal. If you can only get Andrews, then I would only offer Taylor and A.J. Brown. I wouldn't offer the running back. But if you can get Kittle, get Kittle. And, you have McCaffrey and Barkley. Well, that's pretty well done. Okay, yeah, no, you could play Devontae Smith. You have incredibly high floors with those running backs. And is Henderson a must start? I think so. I'm not worried about the fact that Ramondre is back. Henderson has looked like an RB1 in Ramondre's absence. And I think just based on the matchup alone tomorrow, it doesn't matter what Ramondre does. Henderson will be heavily involved. Yeah. I'll play Henderson. I'm playing him over Pearsall. I'm playing him over Wilson for sure. Absolutely. I'm perfectly fine with Henderson. Not worried about him just because Ramondre is back. The matchup against Cincinnati is so good. And I just believe in Henderson. I think he's going to... Ramondre's not going away, but they'd be crazy not to make Henderson the 1A from here on out. 2 wide receivers and a flex in standard scoring. Rice is in. Ikbuka, Diggs, Higgins, Jefferson, and Henderson. Damn. That's a crazy collection of options. Rice is definitely in. I mean, Jefferson is very tough to trust right now, and it has nothing to do with Jefferson. It has everything to do with J.J. McCarthy. I would play Henderson because it's standard scoring, so I'll play the running back in the flex. Give me the high floor in the great matchup against Cincinnati. I don't want to go away from Henderson. You're playing Rice. And then it comes down to Ikbuka, Diggs, Higgins, Jefferson. I mean, these are some great options. Usually, most of the time, obviously, Jefferson is a guy where he's set and forget. I do think you have strong enough, safe enough options where you can actually pivot off of Jefferson. Higgins will see Christian Gonzalez tomorrow. That's a tougher matchup. Diggs gets a great matchup against Cincinnati. I like Ikbuka against the Rams. It sucks that you can't play like three of these guys. Or 3 receivers in a flex, not 2 receivers in a flex. Rice, Henderson, maybe Higgins at home with no Ja'Marr Chase. I know he's playing he's going to see Gonzalez, but Higgins has been a top 15 wide receiver, including a wide receiver 2 overall finish in 3 of his past 4 games, and now there's no Ja'Marr Chase. I will say Rice, Higgins, Henderson. Rice, Higgins, Henderson. That's where I'm going. And then Shedeur over Tyrod? No, I'm not playing Shedeur even if there's a fire. I don't care that the Raiders' defense isn't very good. It's Shedeur's first career start, and for much of this season, he has been a third-string quarterback who has, by the admittance of the coaching staff themselves, he has not gotten first-team reps until this point. If anything, I'm playing the Raiders defense. I'm not playing Shedeur. I will play the Raiders defense as a stream at defense before I stream Shedeur at quarterback. I do not trust that situation right now. So no, if it's like that slim pickings at quarterback, I would rather play Tyrod. And I get that you're a Bears fan. You don't want to root against your own team. I would play Rodgers. I would take the shot on Rodgers. If you can't bring yourself to do it, and Tyrod or Shedeur are your next best options, I guess Tyrod, but I'm not expecting much against Baltimore. Not expecting much against Baltimore. Alec Pierce or Sean Tucker at the flex. Sean Tucker is expected to take on an expanded role. Alec Pierce appears to be moving up the pecking order in Indianapolis and has been steadily getting better. I don't know your scoring. These guys are probably pretty close in projections and expectations. I will say if it's standard scoring or half PPR, I'll take Sean Tucker. He's expected to see more work, a larger role ahead of Rachaad White for Tampa Bay in prime time against the Rams. If it's full PPR, I think I'll go Pierce. Big matchup against the Chiefs. Coming off their bye week, and Indy has had one of the best offenses in football this year. The one guy that you could drop is Quentin Johnston, who has been, he has kind of fallen off recently. Yeah, that's fine. Especially because you have McCaffrey. I'm fine dropping Quentin Johnston for Brian Robinson and protecting your investment. I'm fine with that. And I see full PPR. Pierce. I'll take the wide receiver over Tucker. Tucker because the other thing with Tucker as it pertains to full PPR is Tucker should usurp Rachaad White on rushing downs, first and second down. Rachaad White will probably still have a role on passing down. So in full PPR, that makes Sean Tucker a little less valuable and the wide receiver more valuable. So I'll take Pierce over Tucker. And yes, I would drop Quentin Johnston for Brian Robinson if I had Christian McCaffrey. Not worried about giving a running back away. Okay, sure. I mean, if you can make it happen, if you can turn, some spare parts, Taylor, Wilson, and then try to sell A.J. Brown off of name recognition and get George Kittle, I would be okay with that. I would be okay with that. A few starters on bye this week. One wide receiver, 2 flex, and 1 to drop. Addison, Dobbs, Pierce, Wilson, Tucker, Walker. Well, so first of all, don't. My first piece of advice is don't drop anybody until tomorrow. Let's give it the full until the slate starts before you actually make a decision. Of these names in full PPR, I would play Alec Pierce. I would play Kenneth Walker. He had a great game last week, and then the coaching staff said they need to get him more opportunities. Great matchup against Tennessee, so I'm playing Walker. I'm playing Pierce. Full PPR, that makes Dobbs a little bit more intriguing and probably the guy that I would go with unless Josh Jacobs is out. Or is in, excuse me. If Jacobs is in, I would play in full PPR. Walker and Pierce I'm playing no matter what. If Jacobs is in, I'll play Romeo Dobbs. If Jacobs is out, I would play Emmanuel Wilson. And then who to drop comes down to that situation and then, what is the strength of your team? Do you have a deeper collection of running backs or a deeper collection of wide receivers? And do you have Josh Jacobs? I assume maybe not because I don't see his name in here. If Jacobs plays and you don't have him, then I would probably just drop Emmanuel Wilson. But if Jacobs is out and Wilson is the starter, then not only are you playing Wilson, but then you're definitely not dropping him. Then I would probably drop Sean Tucker in the event that Bucky Irving is back for Week 13. I don't want to drop Addison just yet, just because I know how good he is. But if McCarthy doesn't get it together in the next week or two, then Addison is probably approaching drop territory. But I want to hang on to him for another week or two. But I'm not playing him. So play Pierce, play Walker, and then Wilson if Jacobs is in, Wilson if Jacobs is out, Dobbs if Jacobs is in. Drop Wilson if Jacobs is in, drop Tucker if Jacobs is out. I would play Warren in standard or half and Wilson in full. Okay, we're at the end of the chat, so there is an open line for no problem. If anybody has questions, no wait. There is currently no wait for questions. So I can get to them right away. This is a whole team. Purdy or Mahomes? I mean, Mahomes against Indy. I would play Mahomes in a favorable matchup at home. Mahomes has been running a good bit this year, so I'll roll the dice on that. Well, you're playing McCaffrey, and then between Jones, Walker, Tucker, Olave, Diggs, Pierce, Jennings, Bird, and okay. Well, you're playing... Well, Waller's on IR. I would play Barner over Otten at tight end. Let's get that one out of the way right now. I'll play Barner, and I'll play the Packers against the Vikings on defense. I'd rather target J.J. McCarthy than Baker Mayfield, which is who the Rams have to play. Packers defense, A.J. Barner at tight end, Mahomes at quarterback. McCaffrey is your RB1. I would probably play Walker against Tennessee. I would play Olave and Diggs as your two wide receivers. And then I guess it comes down to like Jones versus Pierce for the flex. And I feel like Aaron Jones is probably where I would go even in full PPR. There's just there's a couple of things. There's a talent level. Jones is a proven player and should get a lot of work as the Vikings starter. He gets to play his old team, so a little revenge game narrative factor for Aaron Jones against Green Bay. I think his floor is higher. Pierce in full PPR is enticing, but Jones getting a full workload from the Vikings backfield is enough for me to push Jones ahead. Mahomes, McCaffrey, Jones, Walker, Olave, Diggs, Barner, Packers. That's where I'm going. A lot of good options here. I would play probably those first three names. Obviously, if Josh Jacobs is out tomorrow, that may change things for Emmanuel Wilson. But, I mean, Kyron, I think, is going to have a good game. It's it's going to be a competitive game between the Bucs and the Rams, like two NFC hopefuls. Conference hopefuls. I don't think Blake Corum is going to see as much work tomorrow. I think it's going to be more of a Kyron game. Rico is on such a tear right now. It's hard to go away from him, and it's a really good matchup against a banged-up, injured 49ers defense. Chase Brown should see a high floor. No Jamar Chase. He could see even more receiving work than he usually does out of the backfield. So I definitely like Dowdle. I definitely like Chase Brown. I think I like Kyron as my third option here. Judkins is hard to trust with Shedeur Sanders starting, so I really don't want to play Judkins. Tucker. Not Tucker in full PPR, not with these names. Tucker's going to cede PPR work to Rachaad White. He'll get the rushing work. Dowdle and Chase Brown for sure. If Jacobs is out, I'm okay if you want to play Emmanuel Wilson, but if Jacobs is in, then I would go Kyren. I think it's a Kyren game for the Rams backfield tomorrow in a big matchup against the Rams. I think Corum sees a little less work than he has in recent weeks. See if there's any more injury updates since we started. Let's see. Brandon Cooks was officially waived. Okay. Roschon Johnson was placed on injured reserve. He's out for at least 4 games. Brandon Ayuk had his contract guarantees voided. That happened yesterday. Probably not a... That's not a great... I can't imagine that's a great situation between team and player. Yeah, no new injury updates. And the chat is pretty open for anybody who needs anything. Kyren or Olave in full PPR. I'll take Olave. I like Kyren's opportunity tomorrow. I think he's going to have a typical Kyren role in a big matchup for the Rams against another conference hopeful to make it out of the conference in Tampa Bay. Should be a big game. I like Kyren to do well tomorrow and handle a larger role than he has in recent weeks. But in full PPR, Olave's coming off his bye week. He had a big game going into the bye. He gets a great matchup against Atlanta. They just gave up 450 passing yards to Bryce Young, and I know that that doesn't mean that Tyler Shuck is going to do anything special. But Olave should get his typical 10 to 12 targets. I would think he has a chance to have a nice day tomorrow against a leaky Falcons defense who are without their starting quarterback and their wide receiver one. Their offense could struggle. That could make for some short fields for the Saints offense. I'll take Olave. Hey, Kevin, what's going on? The Ayuk and Dynasty, yeah, it's volatile, but here's the thing. If you were to trade him, what are you going to get? You might as well hold. Because we've seen, and I know it's been a while, but we've seen Ayuk at his ceiling, and at his ceiling, he's a low-end wide receiver one talent. Maybe not high-end wide receiver one, but he's definitely got top 15 to 17 upside. You are not going to get the equivalent of the wide receiver 15 in any trades right now involving Brandon Ayuk. So if you have him, you might as well just hold. You're not, like, I don't even know what I would offer for Brandon Ayuk right now. I might give somebody a second-round pick. If I'm loaded with draft capital and I have the flexibility to take a shot on a guy and be patient with him, I might offer a second-round pick. And honestly, it might be more like 2/3 right now, or a third and like an intriguing young player. But when I say intriguing, I mean he maybe hasn't done a whole heck of a lot yet, so he's still an unknown. Like, Ayuk is coming off a nasty, nasty injury. The vibes are not great. We haven't seen him play for a year now, over a year now. I'm not going to give anything good for him, which means you're probably not going to get anything good for him. So you might as well hold and hope that he gets healthy and that his situation turns around in the offseason and he goes to another team and gets a fresh start. Yeah. I think you're kind of stuck with Brandon Ayuk right now. Anybody is. Like I wouldn't give that much for him in Dynasty. But if I have him, I might as well to that point just hold because his ceiling is quite good if he can round back into form in 2026. We're not getting anything from Brandon Ayuk in 2025. That's just not happening. Not fantasy anyway. Maybe he comes back for the playoffs, but again, they just voided all his contract guarantees. He might, I don't know what he's thinking right now or what's going through his head or what his team and his family are talking about, but how do I know that the 49ers get 100% of Brandon Ayuk at this point moving forward after something like this happens? The vibes are that the connection, the relationship between player and team are not that great right now. So, and anybody who plays Dynasty is probably plugged in on that. Unless you play Dynasty with some 49ers fans and you can say, like, hey, here's Ayuk. Give me a first-round pick for him. I'm not paying a first-round pick for Brandon Ayuk right now, but, maybe some specific person might. I don't know if that person necessarily plays in your Dynasty league, though. Yeah, the situation with Ayuk is unfortunate. I do think he will be a sneaky buy, you could buy him in 2026 for not that much, and he will be much less of a risk than he was this year coming into the season. I didn't like Brandon Ayuk coming into the season because of such a major injury that he suffered. I was worried about him, and now here we are, week 12, and there's no end in sight for when he returns to the field. But next year he could be interesting. He'll be further removed from the injury, and he might be on a new team. Yeah. All right. So overall, a little bit on the quieter side today. I appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out today. Everybody who did come in, thank you guys for the time and thinking enough to come hang out. But a little quieter than usual. But that's okay. Maybe everybody's all good or they're enjoying their Saturdays. However, I'm enjoying my Saturday. I hope you guys are too. But a little quieter in here than usual. But that's all right. Would I trade London straight up for Rashee Rice? If you're contending, yeah. Both are dynasty. I think it's fair to say both are dynasty wide receiver ones. But of course, London, it's not like London is gone for the season. He will come back. That's the expectation. He will come back. London will. He obviously doesn't, you're not going to have him this week. And there's no guarantee that he comes back next week. But the hope is that he comes back next week. Regardless, his situation is worse than Rice's for the rest of the way. Cousins Cousins might be washed. We felt much better about London with Penix starting. Even with Penix's struggles, we felt much better about London when Penix started compared to now with Cousins starting. Rice, on the other hand, is, a focal point of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, catching the ball from Patrick Mahomes and being a part of Andy Reid's offense. That's a much better scenario and situation on a case-by-case basis to be in. London is younger than Rice by, I think, a year or two. I think London's like 24 and Rice is 25. Yeah. If you want to, I think I'm okay with that, Kevin. I think I'm okay. Because Rice, you're contending for a championship. You're competing for a title. And for the rest of this season, Rashee Rice is a safer, better option than Drake London. You could always try to reacquire London down the road in a when the situation turns around and is better. And maybe, in a vacuum, I'd rather have London than Rice by a hair in Dynasty. But if I'm competing and I can trade London for Rice straight up, I would rather have Rice rest of this season. So, yeah, I think I'm okay with that. They are close in Dynasty, but you're trying to win this year. The guy I'd rather have this year between the two of them is Rice. So, yeah, I'll take Rice. Yeah, it's close, but I would take Rice for this year. It's close in Dynasty as well, but and then is McCarthy a buy while everyone is down on him? So you could certainly take that chance. He has really struggled. Now, again, he's only played like a handful of games in his NFL career. So there's only so much, there's only so much slack that we can so much shade or so much criticism we can throw at him. But boy, it has not been good. I don't want to trade a first-round pick for him right now, but I would also probably ask for a first-round pick just because of how young he is and how much upside he still has. So if the person who has McCarthy is frustrated or giving up, and you can get him for like maybe a couple of second-round picks, or a second-round pick and another player that you may not necessarily want or need, sure, that's fine. But it has not looked very good, so I'm not giving up like a first-round pick for him, assuming this is super flex. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So could he be a buy? Sure. But I'm probably trying to, to that point, like buy. I'm trying to buy low if I do it at all. I'm not paying the same price that it would have cost to get him at the beginning of the season. And if the person who has him is asking for the same thing that they would have asked for at the beginning of the season, then I'm not entertaining that. I'm not entertaining that. So, I guess it depends on what the ask is. Nino got offered Nico for Pickens straight up. I think I would keep Pickens. I know he's his team's wide receiver too, but also, is he? I think he has outgained CeeDee in yardage since CeeDee came back from the injury. I mean, I trust Dak way more than I trust CJ Stroud. Or Davis Mills. Maybe Davis Mills is going to be their starter moving forward. He's looked better. But I trust Dak more than either one of them regardless. It's a better offense in Dallas. And their defense is still leaky. Their defense is better, but it's leaky. So they need to stay, especially their secondary. So they have to stay aggressive on offense more often than not. Pickens may struggle tomorrow against the Eagles. There's a lot of teams and players have, including Pickens week 1. But Pickens has been a top 7 or 8 wide receiver all season long. Nico is more of like the low-end wide receiver 1 tier. So I would rather have Pickens than Nico Collins. So I don't think I would make that trade. I don't think I'm making that deal. I'd rather have Pickens. Okay. Once again at the end of the chat. I feel like usually I'm the one that's leaving you guys hanging for like a half hour waiting for questions because they're to get answered because there's usually good volume, like high volume today. So maybe a lot of people are good for their week 12 lineups. Again, thank you everybody for coming in and hanging out. Those who did, those who have, appreciate it. But there is no wait at the moment. I can stick around a bit longer. That's no problem. I usually do. But if everybody's all good, and as always, you can always join me in Discord as well. If you maybe for anybody who's delayed or maybe unavailable to at this particular time, Discord is the second link in the description of this live stream and all videos and streams on the channel. As a free evergreen invite, you can join me there, ask questions there. But I suppose it's possible that this one's a little on the shorter end, this stream. Yeah. But let's see. No new injury updates. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll stick around for another couple of minutes, but if there are no other questions, and honestly, or and if anybody, if you want to rehash anything, feel free. Talk through anything specific. But if not, if everybody's all good ahead of Week 12, big matchup, probably with playoffs on the line for a lot of folks. We're coming down to the wire here. Colts over Chiefs to cover or to win outright. That's a tough spot on the road for them, but they are coming out of their bye week. Chiefs have been struggling a little bit this year, being 5-5. I thought they would handle their business against Denver last week. That was wrong. Denver was the one who got the win. I'm probably not going to touch that game against the spread. It's two good teams, but the Chiefs have been the worst team. The Chiefs haven't been as good this year on a week-by-week basis as the Colts, but they are at home, and they do have the pedigree. The Colts are up and coming and exciting. I'm probably, I do a spread pool, so I have to pick 6 games every week. I don't think I'm touching that one. I think that's one I'm going to leave alone. I think it's going to be a good game, a close game, but who ultimately pulls it out, that could truly go either way. Could truly go either way. All right. Might be calling it a little early today. If everybody is all good. But as always, wanted to make sure I got some time with you guys. Made sure everybody had an opportunity to talk shop if they needed something for Week 12. But not too many questions at the moment, so I may be shutting this down. But thanks for those for coming in. I saw Nino and Kevin today. Appreciate my members. And everybody for coming in and hanging out. I can pop on tomorrow for a short while if anybody needs any last-minute thoughts. But other than that, that might do it for today. With no new questions, which is totally fine. All right, I think we're good. As always, if you miss the stream or if you miss me, you can hit me in the form of a question in the form of a comment on any videos or streams on the channel. The more recent, the better. And again, Discord, second link in the description of this live stream. All videos and streams on the channel. Free evergreen invite. You can ask questions over there. All right. I think that'll do it, though. Thank you guys for coming in. Hopefully everybody has a great rest of your Saturday. And I will make sure to pop on tomorrow morning just in case anybody needs anything ahead of the Week 12 slate. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.